What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another movie review. Today we're going to be talking about Captain America Winter Soldier. Oh, this movie is probably, if not my favorite Marvel movie, definitely in my top 3. Because this one just does so much things right. Like, this is the first one, I believe, the first one that Anthony and Joe Russo did leading up to their Infinity War and Endgame, and they also did, I believe, Captain America: Civil War. But like, these two were done so well, from the opening gates with the Sam on your left, running around the big pond in Washington D.C. on your left, and he's like, "Yeah, I get it, thanks." To the stealth suit. Oh man, that dark stealth suit looks so good. Every time every suit I think for Cap looks great, but this dark one, the stealth one, looked especially good. But just like the scene he goes to jump off the plane and she's like, too scared, or what's the deal with not asking that girl out? And he's like, too busy. Jumps out and the guy goes, was he wearing a parachute? No, he wasn't. Captain America doesn't need a parachute to jump out of a plane. And then that whole hijacking that boat sequence, but it was really hired by Nick Fury to get hijacked and then send Cap in to secure the hostages so nobody gets hurt, but also send Nat in to steal information. Like, this was, I think, peak MCU for me. Like, this movie is 100% 5 out of 5 stars. It just, there's no way around it. Any movie that's going to have George St. Pierre in it, he plays Batroc the Leaper. Their fight scene to open the movie up is great. Then you also have, scenes like Nick Fury's car chase scene. They fake out his death, establish this Winter Soldier story. Nat tells him the story. She gets shot through the hip. The elevator sequence. Oh my God. Like, the little line he has. Does anyone want to get out?
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Like, that line's so good. Cap's on the run. Nat finds the thing that Cap hid. Then they go on the run together. She's like, oh man, it's just so good. Like, she tells him all about this Winter Soldier's ghost story. It ends up being Bucky the whole time, but Cap doesn't know that yet. Like, oh man, like, everything how it works, like, it ties in things from Captain America 1 that worked great, and then it ties in, he was in the Avengers movie, so it ties in from that. But it also sets up Civil War. It sets Cap up for Age of Ultron. Like, it leads you into, like, the next movies, but also tells you a great story here and takes pieces from the past. Like, what's his name? The terrible, like, I don't know what title to give him, but he's the guy that gives Tony Stark his award at the end of, what is that, Iron Man 3. And he's like, yeah, we need a presentation. And he's like, you're a real prick, Tony. And he like stabs him with the pin. And he's like, oh, sorry. And like, but he ends up being Hydra the whole time. So like, Hydra's the main thing in Cap 1. Like, so just how Hydra was this big thing for Cap, and it just kept going through the stories. Like, it was fantastic. And then Red Skull comes back in Endgame. Just like the way that the MCU is working up to this point with the tie-ins and little payoffs here and there. Like, it was all golden. The shit with Zola, the Robert Redford scenes with Sebastian Stan's Winter Soldier, right? Like, Cap survives a missile strike. They go to Sam for help. Sam applies for the team. Jasper Sitwell, and getting him to talk about Hydra. They're talking about Doctor Strange, who wasn't even in the MCU yet. Like, this whole movie, like, then Cap and Nat and Sam have a fight with the Winter Soldier and his goons on the highway, and then they fight, and you get this great shot of, well, first off, that Winter Soldier sting, that bang, like his noise, like his little, like, scream, like echoing scream, like whatever it is. A lot of people say it's like the scream from when, but like distorted from when Bucky fell in Cap 1. I think I heard somewhere from like the guy that made it that it wasn't that necessarily, but like, it's a good thought. But just like that sting for the Winter Soldier is great. Then like he gets the punch on the shield. That's like, I'm pretty sure straight out the comic books, with the metal arm and Cap with the shield. how good does that shield always look? Like, it just always looks pristine, and it's like, isn't this thing supposed to have scuffs and war marks on it? Like, hasn't been bouncing off walls and people, and it always just looked pristine up until, you know, the one part where it's like covered in soot because Winter Soldier shot a grenade launcher at him, but like, so Bucky punches it, then they have this knife fight scene, that little knife flip. Oh, it looks so good. And then Cap flips him. You get the, Bucky? Who the fuck is Bucky? You know, like.
Bucky? Who the hell is Bucky?
Like, certain lines in this, you realize, oh wait, Bucky doesn't know he's Bucky. He's just been the Winter Soldier, getting put on ice and back and forth, and been doing missions for Hydra for years, you know, like, shaped the century, as Redford says. Like, Robert Redford's great in this movie. But, you know, like, the whole fight scene with them, you know, went to see him, Bucky, and, you know, it's his best friend, and you're like, oh my god, Steve and Bucky are fighting? No way. Like, and Bucky's still alive. Steve's supposed to have been on ice for 70 years. Bucky's been on ice. So it's just similar, like, how their stories overlap and how they're similar, but one got taken by Hydra, one got taken by S.H.I.E.L.D. So, like, Cap's been this super soldier for them. He's been the Winter Soldier for them. Like, it's just crazy how they coordinate. And then all of a sudden they go to the fight to end, and they have to take down the 3 helicarriers, and Cap's on the run, so he needs a suit. He goes and steals the suit from the museum. In the first one, you get a Stan Lee cameo. Like, I think these movies really miss Stan Lee. Like, just the little cameo every movie was great, because all of a sudden you'd just be watching, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, Stan Lee! You know, like, it was always something like a little perk. You'd be like, oh, Stan Lee, nice. I forgot he was in this. And, you know, just how this movie, you know, ends with Sam's fight with Rumlow. Sam jumps out the window, and this Fury has to catch him in the helicopter. He's like, 41st floor, 44th. He's like, you think they put numbers on the outside of the building? You know, like, just the certain lines. Like, there's great writing in this, great shooting, like, just story all around. Just told a great story. And then it ends, and, like, you know, Cap's like, oh, you know, brings back the line, I'll bring it, oh, I'm with you to the end of the line, pal. And, you know, he falls in the water. Bucky pulls him out of the water, saves him, you know, and then it cuts to, like, the post-credit scene, and you see, like, them setting up Age of Ultron with the twins. They set up, you know, when you first see Pietro and Wanda, so you start to see, you know, Scarlet Witch do the little cross spikes come out of a block, so you know that she's, like, not going to be necessarily a good guy forever, considering she's a bad person by Multiverse of Madness. But then they also have an end-to-end credit scene where you see Bucky at the same museum Cap was walking in earlier, and, you know, it sets up now Civil War. So it's setting up Cap to go into Age of Ultron, but it's also setting up Bucky to be the main story of Cap 3. So they're setting up, like, 2 movies with just 2 credit scenes, right? Like, and that's where Marvel does its best. Like, there's one real problem I have with this movie, and it's not even really this movie's fault. Right, like the one line, the one gripe I have is Fury going, last time I trusted somebody, I lost an eye, and then that ends up to be a Flurkin goose in Captain Marvel. I get it, like, they maybe were going for a joke on how he lost his eye, but, like, we all wanted that eye reveal to be, like, this huge big thing, and I guess that's Captain Marvel's fault, not this movie's fault, but, like, that's the one only problem I have with this movie. And, you know, like, things like Secret Invasion nowadays, like, Nick Fury in this was way more badass, also, what, 10 years younger, but still, way more badass than Secret Invasion was, and I really had high hopes the first couple episodes for Secret Invasion. They just didn't stick the landing. They didn't have post-credit scenes, they didn't have payoffs, they didn't have connections, they didn't have anything that made us actually give a fuck about that show. They just gave us a show, and then the director's like, well, you can't trust the bad reactions online. We all try our best. Dude, you can't make a bad show and then blame the people watching your show. Like, if the unanimous overview of the show is that people weren't happy with this ending. It's not our fault. It's like, it has to be the maker's fault at a certain point, right? Like, not, and I get the point, like, not all directors or people that make movies, they're not all out there to make a bad movie. The goal isn't to make a bad movie. They all set out to make a good project, and sometimes they just don't deliver. But like, this is Marvel we're talking about. Like, this sometimes don't deliver. Like, that could not have been this show, and they just didn't deliver. But like, on the upside of things, Loki Season 2's trailer's out, and that looks phenomenal. So go check out my trailer breakdown on the channel of Loki Season 2. Stay tuned for some more movie reviews. There's a bunch of things for the start of August here that came on to the Max and Peacock, and Disney Plus now has Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, so we'll be watching a bunch of things. We're going to continue our Marvel rewatch, but comment below, what did you think of Captain America Winter Soldier? Do you think Cap fucks? I think he does. F-U-X, he fucks. But definitely not in this movie. He's still a virgin by this movie, but I don't know. We'll find out maybe one day. One day Cap will fuck. But we're going to continue this Marvel rewatch. My next video on the list of this timeline rewatch is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. So we're going to take it back. We're going back in time, and we're working our way through the timeline. It kind of feels good. It kind of like it brings back memories. You're like, oh fuck, I was 15 years old when this came out. And you're like, I remember going to see this in theaters and being blown away. Now it's like almost 10 years later, and I'm still blown away. I watched it last night with the puppies cuddling on the couch, and it was amazing. It was a great time. So comment below if you have any movie recommendations for me. Follow my letterbox in the description below. Go check out my movie reviews on there and see how many movies I've watched this year. It's a lot. It's a lot more than I probably should have watched, but hey, I've also been watching shows, so I feel like the number could be even more. But comment below if you have anything to recommend for me, anything that I should check out in the future, and leave your ranking for this movie in the description below, out of 5 stars, out of 10 stars, do whatever you'd like. But comment below, at me on Twitter, find me on Instagram, at BigCam, pretty much anywhere, 2 G's in the big, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.